Hallo zusammen, willkommen zu Living La Vita Local Podcast, einen Retro-Gaming-Podcast für einige Retro-Gaming-Bedürfnisse. Mein Name ist Fazz.
My Name is Richard.
Hi.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened there?
You look confused as I did the other day when I was... no, you look actually quite calm about the
Intro
situation.
Deutsch is fine.
I was listening to a podcast the other day in my car. Two podcasts. Neither
One
of
in
which...
each speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither of which were gaming podcasts. They were just general podcasts. I think it was like Dan Snow's History Hit, one of them. And out of nowhere, I got a German localization for advert for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4.
Lovely.
Just like, it's clearly... I wonder how, because I use like Podcast Addict, for example, for a lot of podcasts. I use Spotify for some too, but it was just interesting to see how it kind of knew what I would want in a week's time, which is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, but also why it thought I was in the Schwarzwald. Like,
That's a good question.
Yeah, I just don't understand, because everything else is completely as it should be, like in terms of localization from where I was. You know, I think there was like a Leeds, like... city something or other, blah blah, and then all of a sudden I was like, and it was something really quite evocative about hearing about shredding a skateboard in German. I was like, that just sounds like the best fun. So we're going to talk about Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 tonight.
Wunderbar.
Yeah, fantastic. But also we're going to do a little bit more extreme sports as well. Last time we spoke about skateboarding, I think Ollie World and Ollie we've done, and you know we did Tony Hawk's Underground 2 for the PSP. Have we done any more? We've done SSX and stuff.
Done SSX. One of these days I'm going to do Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer.
Nice. Oh, cool. Okay, we'll align on that then. We'll talk about that business offline, because I could do something like Sean White or something, or another named person.
Something else involving boards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And another extreme sports game that we're going to talk about tonight, which has got a named. I guess do you call them athlete / celebrity, I guess, top of their game when they were kind of coming out, sort of thing, is Dave Mirra. Yeah. You know, so it was just the in thing, wasn't it, for Activision, just to go, oh, we'll just get a named sports
pro
stuff.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That was how they all went.
Yeah. So I specifically picked though Dave Mirra BMX Challenge on the PSP. I've got, and I'll tell you the reasons why now. Possibly.
Cool.
Start off with that.
Is it because you own a PSP?
It is. Well, I mean, this is a PSP, PS Vita-centric podcast in a way, or it used to be, and it's obviously branched out a bit more. Yeah, but, you know, we've branched out a little bit more. And, but still love going back to playing on the PSP. And the reason I picked this was because it is the second worst rated PSP game on Metacritic.com.
Oh, excellent.
So I need to see what that was about.
What's the worst one?
It's not Yu-Gi-Oh, is it? No, maybe.
I mean, the only reason I'm asking is that for some reason in my head it was The Sims, and I don't know where. I think that's probably your review.
Yeah, that was yeah. To be fair, The Sims, I've seen where The Sims is, and that's probably about like the 25th worst. So
right, okay.
Yeah, so there's well, yeah. So this had, I think, had a rating of like 34 out of 100, I guess.
I mean, in fairness, that was like 34 more than Carmageddon 64.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there is literally though. There's the one. What is it? Shit. I think it is Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe, or something like that. But anyway, it's like that's at 30, and that's it. There's nothing under a 3 apparently for PSP on Metacritic.com.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Well, to be honest, I think that's probably. We're going to come and look at PSP launch titles, European launch titles, in September, because that was 20-year anniversary of that. And it's interesting to sort of see some of the reviews of that, because they're very not high, but they're not low either. That is in, there wasn't many ill words said about those games at time of release.
Broadly fine.
Yes, and I think that's probably how people felt about the PSP, especially as a handheld experience, like broadly fine.
Yeah.
This game wasn't broadly fine to a lot of people. So there's probably a few things that I guess attributed to that. So it came out at the back end of 2005 / 2006, depending on where you were in the world. And it was developed by Left Field Productions. So that is not who developed the original Dave Mirra games.
Right.
That was developed by Z-Axis and published by your favourite Acclaim. I need to ask about Acclaim because there's been a couple of times where you've mentioned how shit they are, and I don't really know as much about them, maybe. Or maybe not, just you sort of suggested that they weren't a great publishing.
Hit and miss, I think, would be fair.
So, published by Acclaim and Z-Axis, the originals. Z-Axis have got a really good pedigree in that sort of field, if you will, with... They developed Thrasher Presents Skate and Destroy, a game that I dabbled with for this podcast, and realised, again, how good it is and how hard it is. And I thought, if we're going to do Tony Hawk's 3 and 4, the remake, which I've dabbled over the weekend as well, I didn't want to necessarily have just skating / sort of, grinding of that kind. So I put that back down, and I picked this up instead. But they also did Dave Mirra 1 and 2. They did aggressive inline skating as well for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, which really enjoyed that at the time. And they also developed BMX XXX.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The thing is, so that started life out as Dave Mirra 3. But by that point, I think that Z-Axis and Acclaim in their relationship had almost, they weren't profitable. And Acclaim especially, and I think they both sort of boards suggested it'd be good if they could try and do something a bit more off kilter, a bit more
risque.
Yes, that's probably the right word. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so basically, BMX XXX. I've never played it, but I believe there's topless ladies riding
I think that is
bicycles and things, and that's kind of the shtick. Which is mental to think that came out as a game. You know what I mean? It's just like, especially so. Dave Mirra was actually actively involved in the game to start off with, and then eventually divorced himself from that process. I think realizing what might have been happening, like probably read the tea leaves quite well there. Yeah. So that happened, and that game and its notoriety and commercial failure actually broke Acclaim and Z-Axis effectively. That was like one of the straws that broke the donkey's back. So then Left Field picked up the Dave Mirra franchise just for this one game, pretty much.
Right.
And their pedigree, though, weird would be, and that is eclectic would be the best word to describe them. So they did Slam and Jam on the 3DO, so basketball game. Right. Okay, fair enough. They also made Excite Bike 64 for the N64, which is, as far as I'm aware,
that's why it rings a faint bell.
Really well regarded and quite loved. They also did the World Series of Poker games, mostly for the PSP, if I'm going to be honest. And they also did Disney's Little Mermaid 2, Pinball Frenzy for the Game Boy Color. So, they've been around before. They have, I don't know. They have made some games. It's the sentence I'm going to use before they made this. Yep. It's a bit of a sad story about. The reason I'm filibustering here is because there's the game. The rating given on Metacritic.com is probably about right. I'd say for the game. We'll get to that in a minute. There's not a lot to it, but I also wanted to just quickly discuss what happened to Dave Mirra as well. So unfortunately, he passed away in 2016. After committing suicide. So really sadly. But he was the first pro athlete to have been diagnosed with posthumous CTE. Right. And there was a lot of sort of talk around then about how that could have contributed to his moods and how he felt. Last year, though, last August 2024, there was a really nice moment where he had a statue in a skate park erected in his honour in his second home, Greenville, by his family as well. So it feels like they're kind of getting to a bit where it's, they're remembering him fondly and everything. And there's been a lot of support about his case and how, there could have been some contribution to how he passed away through the sport and things. So, hopefully he's at peace now, and, and hopefully some good things coming out with research and stuff, but just a bit sad really, just that Dave Mirra, I guess, as a franchise and obviously himself as well, kind of met a bit of a sad end, but to remember that that Dave Mirra 1 and 2 were brilliant fun games that I really enjoyed. And, you know, I'm going to say at the start of this review, I would go play those games to remember Dave Mirra in the right way. And just kind of, you know, this is more of a, if you're a completionist of the Dave Mirra franchise or PSP sports game in general, then potentially you might want to go check this out. I would not recommend it. It would be the easiest to say it. So, quick and breezy through this to get to the good stuff, hopefully, with Jet Set Radio, which is the game that you are reviewing.
Jet Set Radio!
Not even mentioned it yet. And I'm looking at Tony Hawk's 3 and 4, like I say, the remake that came out on effectively sort of midway through last week. You could pick up the deluxe edition and get it early. It came out on Friday on PS5 and Xbox Game Pass. So, back to this game then. I'm just going to blast through my notes, basically, because that's all it deserves, kind of.
I'm going to get some sweets then, hang on.
Yeah, absolutely, I would be.
Right, go.
There is an unlicensed soundtrack.
Oh, that's a good start.
It's favourable enough, kind of punk guff in the background, but
That's a great band,
yeah. but they've been more deserving of the name, and already punk guff have had a better career than the bands that are playing on this soundtrack. It was fine. It was passable enough.
Right.
You can't really customize your rider. The only thing you can do is change their name, and there's a couple of sort of different types of face types you can have, which is a bit, for 2005, a bit odd. You think by that point you kind of could add a bit more customization, but it's literally just have this girl, have this boy, have this white man, have this black man kind of thing, and it's just like, that was it really. You got some weird preset names if you wanted to. My preset name, which I thought was quite fun actually, was Joe Slow. So yeah,
nice.
I stayed with Joe Slow. I didn't change it. I just thought that was apt. There is basically just a inverted comma career mode in this game. Which is split into two types of challenges. So you've got racing and then you've got tricks.
Right.
So basically, you have race events and you race against 3 other NPCs. And you have trick events where you are by yourself in the most barren, soulless wasteland of an event zone that you can ever imagine within one of these extreme sports games, where you think that you see. I'm thinking about the bull ring where you do the Barcelona competition in Tony Hawk's. And that's like sort of 5 or 6 years before this. You go to this, and it's almost like the very first event zone is like I think it's like an Inca inspired level, and it's just all weird stone shapes that are kind of terrible PS1 graphics and no crowd or real sound effects or anything. But at least in the trick events, it asks you to do tricks. It's almost like there is something where it tries to make you do something. The detection of your inputs seems slow, and you performing a trick seems even slower. It's almost like seeing time actually physically stop while you are in midair trying to pop these BMX tricks. It's not extreme at all. It is the slowest game engine I've ever seen, possibly. It is god awful for its speed. And that's just the trick events. Like I say, graphically, it's shit. It genuinely is possibly the worst PSP game I've seen graphically. It is poor to think that this was out at the same time as something like, I don't know, even Metal Gear Acid, for example, that looks great in game and stuff. I know the PSP games evolved from 2005 onwards, but Wipeout Pure, for example, that was out in 2005, and my God, that isn't compared to this. Chalk and cheese. Then you get to the races. They are the most boring, barren, slow, like no progression. There's no impetus. It just feels like you're kind of traveling like on an escalator at the airport. While other people, the NPCs are kind of racing past you, but even they look like they're struggling a little bit. They're running to get their flight, and you're just kind of idling along on these travelators, just fucking bored, senseless. Not moving either. You're just like, I don't need to run. I've got my BMX at the back. I'm fine. Just and then in the odd times that you do catch up and interact with your competitors, the collision detection, it's like the whole physics engine it's not broken. It's like it's made of cereal boxes. It's just so you bump into the people and then you come off in the worst possible sort of crash. That you don't come off your bike or anything. There's no ragdoll, there's no fun about it. You just literally spin around and you're stuck. And then you have to catch up again through these 4, 5, 6 minute races of 8 laps that just kind of go round this waterfront, for example, on the first level.
Yeah.
And it's just all boxy triangles and stuff. And it just looks like it's been made by children on a computer. I went to the National Media Museum at the weekend, and I noticed really cool that there was a new exhibit from local Bradford school children who have been brought together by, is it called Gaming Impact or Gamers Impact? I can't remember check it out, like if you can Google it and get something close to that, of a business in Bradford who help children code video games. Cool. And there were some video games that you could play on there that had been coded by kids, and they were better than this. That is, like, they were visibly made by children, but I know that. Yeah. Whereas this was made by adults who have made video games before and seem to be doing, I'd say, on par in terms of the physics engine and also the excitement I was getting from it. Like, so, yeah, damning. Well done, kids. Bad adults. That basically. It was functional enough. But like a roller blind is functional, a door handle is functional. Like but you don't buy a door handle from Game or like at the time Electronics Boutique or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You don't go and go, I'm going to get a door handle today and I'm going to have the best fucking time with this door handle. No, I'm going to go spend £30, which this would have been at the time £25-30 to have a door handle of a game. Like it exists. It's a boring old fart, like, and it left me bereft of any sort of fun that you would, and it made me think about playing on Dave Mirra 2, for example, and having the best time. And this just didn't gel with me at all. And I kind of went in thinking I kind of want to be able to. I really wanted it to be better than what it said it was on the actual ratings. And this, to be fair, there's a few users out there who sort of say, no, actually, this is a bit better than what the critics are giving it. But I feel like those reviews may be made, 18 years ago. Like now, I was like, oh god, this is bad. This is bad. So yeah, really, really sad to see that this game was as bad as it was sort of stated it was. 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Dave Mirra BMX Challenge. It's always good to kind of check out these games to see if they are as bad as people make them out to be. And you see why. You really do.
I'm putting it on the spreadsheet as Dave Mirra's door handle.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I mean, I look forward to forgetting this, and then we get to the December audit.
Oh,
the heck is this?
Thing is, a December audit sounds boring, but it's not. That episode's really, really fun. Much more fun than Dave Mirra BMX Challenge ever will be.
Also a terrible band name.
Yeah. So yeah, that I thought we'd kick off with the shit.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear about Jet Set Radio.
Cool.
Because I've never played it. I've always wanted to play it.
Yep.
And I feel like you'll do a really good job of telling me if it's great or not.
I will do my best. So yeah, Jet Set Radio. Or if you're going to pronounce it properly, Jet Set Radio! Yeah.
I've seen that bit.
So yeah, where the heck do I start with this? It had a 25th anniversary recently. In June, I believe. So quick little bit of housekeeping I've got to do before we go into this. I played this on my PlayStation TV. Mm-hmm. So it's the Vita version, but on a big screen.
Ah, cool. I didn't know there was one.
Indeed so.
Brilliant.
Yes. So this was from, I think it was probably near 2012 or something like that-ish. Yeah. But yeah, basically when they did the HD re-release for Xbox 360 and PS3, they also brought it out on Vita.
It's just interesting because looking into this, I was like, I really would like to play this at some point as well myself, but I didn't realise it was on Vita. But you can't get it, for example, digitally on Xbox at the moment.
They just recently delisted it,
which is like horseshit.
Yeah, it's not ideal. But the fact that I'm mentioning this because, as I understand it from doing a little bit of digging, if you were playing it on a proper Vita, you would have some function for the touchscreen and the rear touchpad and stuff like that. Not touching on any of that because I didn't use it. I was using a controller.
Good.
So,
you didn't lose any function at all from not having that available.
I could still play it
Yeah.
as best as I could tell. I could still play it as intended. I think, without wishing to get too far ahead of myself, basically it would be things like when you are doing the graffiti, you would be able to use the touchscreen. So, yeah, I mean, that seems like a slightly sensible place to start. The idea is you go into a level, you have a few to select from. It's reasonably self-contained. You can jump, grind, scoot about the place, and you are trying to do some graffiti on the way. I know that's not the technical term, but I don't know what it is.
Do a graffiti.
Do a graffiti. So you're tagging stuff on the way. So in theory, you would be, taking these lines around these levels, hitting stuff on the way, and occasionally there'd be like a really, really big bit of graffiti that you have to paint over, where you'd have to press, say, like down, do a circle on the stick, half circles, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think those would be what you would use the touchscreen for, in theory.
Yeah, who knows? Potentially. Write in if you know.
The thing with this is that you are basically, the story is you are recruiting for this gang, and you are kind of trying to take over Tokyo. Sounds like some kind of weird malicious act. I think it's just kind of like your good vibes versus their bad vibes, and you're trying to like out vibe them. I felt so fucking old playing this game. I tell you, like it looks great, right? Early, if not one of the first cell shaded games, and especially playing it HD and all that. It's bright, it's vibrant, looks incredible. The soundtrack is distinctive, eclectic. I think for my tastes, like the loops that they were on were kind of short, so there are a couple of tracks that could get a little bit irritating, because the levels you go in are timed. So say you would go in, you would have 13 tags to find inside of however many minutes, and while you are there, you will sometimes have people from other gangs trying to tag stuff as well. Yeah, you can run into them and get more paint, which works kind of like a finite ammo type thing. So you have to go and collect more.
Oh, I was going to say, is that like you can just do what you want all the time? But
no, you got you have effectively an ammo counter, and also while you are going around these levels, you'll have the police taking an interest in what you're doing, and things do not escalate in the way that you necessarily think they might for a bunch of youths spraying paint everywhere on their rollerblades. Like, fucking SWAT teams come out, fire tear gas at you, people turn up with missile launch, like there's paratroopers, attack helicopters,
holy shit,
Rottweilers, like it's like a fucking war zone by the end of it. And I found it so frustrating. So ludicrously frustrating. So a good example, well, not even a good example, like the controls, and again, I had a quick check around of this, and it wasn't just me. The controls are clunky, right? By the admission of a lot of people, that even those that love the game, the controls are clunky. And I think to look at the button bindings and stuff like that, they're reasonably straightforward, reasonably simple, and basically what you would expect, right? Nothing out of the unusual. However, I realised playing this how spoiled I was by the Tony Hawk games. Like, just the sense of momentum, the fluidity, the way it can chain stuff together. Like, I always felt in control in those games. And I always felt like I had a clear sense of direction, clear way of getting to a place, unless it was a deliberate kind of puzzly type thing or whatever. But like, I never felt like I got cheated out of being able to do a move because I hit a wall at slightly the wrong angle, or I didn't quite time my jump onto a rail or something like that. It would be quite forgiving in its timings and things like that. I get the impression that Jet Set Radio feels clunky because it's very strict when it comes to collisions, when it comes to you taking damage or having to fend off cops as you're like dragging them along, like so they hang onto your ankles or whatever, and all this kind of stuff. And it just
stop spraying shit. No.
yeah. And it just felt like when you are in a level trying to find these things to tag, and you've got half of the friggin' army coming after you. and the music is on a really short loop, and you're like, well, I can get away from them if I do this grind and get up this hill or whatever, because it's got this little way you can escape. I've got a blue arrow I can aim for, and that'll be the cutoff where they won't come after me again. And then it's just like, well, you fucked it, mate, didn't you? And you just like get stuck between two trucks. The camera goes upside down, and then you get attacked by another pack of dogs. And you're just like, where are my nice vibes?
Yeah, this is not ended well.
Where are my nice vibes? This is frustrating. And so, full disclosure, between that and the fact that, well, until today where we're recording, we had some incredible weather recently, right? I have not played nearly as much of this as I could or probably should have. Because I was outside reading.
On that note, and this is me commending our listeners. That is in not a single fucking person listened to this podcast on Saturday. Good on you.
Good.
It was like 30 degrees out there. So if someone had listened to this podcast on Saturday, I'd been fucking livid. And it was like...
Yeah, and I had that... In fact, it was Saturday where I was like, I've got... Like, my plans have changed. I'm around all day. I could wade in. And then it's like, but... No. So I didn't. And... Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, I don't... Well, I mean, I do feel like I'm missing a reasonably significant chunk of the game, but I'm reasonably sure that I kind of don't want to go back in and play it more.
Oh, okay.
Like, it was that annoying. And
wow.
So you will go around and you will, as you've completed levels, you can play other ones, and occasionally other would-be gang members will turn up at your window, at your hideout, and be like, hey, do you want to try and beat this lion? And then you can recruit them. It got to the stage...
Turn up at your window, like it's a hot dog stand or some shit.
And it got to the stage where you get an option, like, do you reckon you could beat this line, yes or no? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
I politely declined this game currently.
There were a bunch of characters where I'm just like, no, I can't beat that line, because I went and I tried it. And like, there'd be ones where, say you are going along a walkway and you've got a rail on the left, a rail on the right, and then a gap, and then a left and right rail again. And you have to jump from the right-hand rail over the gap to the left-hand rail.
Okay.
Right? So call it a 45-degree jump over a gap. And I just lost track of how many times I could not do that pissing jump, because like I would be where I thought aiming near enough, and then it would be like, nah, it's like at 60 degrees, mate. And just flinging me off into the abyss. And it's things like that where it's like, well, if I don't feel like I'm fully in control of what I'm doing in a game where it is all about fluid movement and then occasionally stopping to hit these big tags, that's a problem for me. That feels like a pretty fundamental problem for me. And I am sure that there are a bunch of people like not happy right now. And that is fine. Like, that is okay. I can make peace with that.
There's people against the window asking, and you were like, no. And they're like, that's not... I'm not coded for you to say no.
But this is the thing, right? Like, it's... When you are watching the game's, like, attract screen, you got the title, push any button to start and all that kind of stuff. Oh, my God, it looks good. It looks like so much fun. And because it was a re-release, they put a documentary in.
Oh, cool.
And it's only short. But I had more fun with that than I did actually playing the game, because it goes into a little bit more detail about, the kind of cultural context of Tokyo at the time, and how it came about, how you get this eclectic mash of styles, what they wanted to do with it, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what, that's really interesting. And it's got some clips in there of the game being played properly by somebody who actually knows what they're doing, instead of some hairy idiot in 2025. And it's great. And I can imagine that if you've got the time and the inclination to invest in it and you're going to play the game on its terms, then I could see how it would all come together and be incredible, and really, really good fun. But it just wasn't clicking for me. This is probably one of the best games I've bounced this hard off for, certainly recently. There's not many of them that I've gone in and I've just been like, oh God, you know what? Like, no, I don't want any extra characters. Thank you. No more fun for me. I'm good. And it's like, I'm not sad about it, because I was always, playing different things anyway. This game is 25 years old and it's the first time I've sat down to play it. It clearly was never high on my priority list. And I can imagine that if you were there at the time and you're seeing these cel-shaded graphics and hearing this stuff, and I can imagine that it would have been revolutionary, right? I can imagine being sat there in the year 2000, lest we forget, hearing and seeing this stuff for the first time, And oh god, yeah, I can imagine how intoxicating that would be,
especially on a Dreamcast. Because I imagine,
yeah.
I think did Tony Hawk's 2 come out on the Dreamcast?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I can't remember now. Shit, that would be a good thing to know, wouldn't it? Just because I'm thinking, like, as in it. I don't remember. I could be completely incorrect about this, but I don't remember there being loads of that kind of game on the Dreamcast, for example. Yeah. Therefore, if this came along with its Segaization, then yeah, fair enough. Like, you could be like, oh wow, you might have a real strong, nostalgia for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, I did make a bit more headway with it when I stopped trying to play it like Tony Hawk and play it almost more like a 3D platformer.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, like, as an example, there's another bit early on where you're kind of going across the rooftops on this little street, and to take a Tony Hawk game as an example, the roof would be reasonably flat. Whereas this was like each house would be a slightly different level to the one before it. And so you'd be able to grind across some of them in a straight line, or like just ride across some of them in a straight line. You would probably have to jump up a level or down. And it meant that when you were trying to then jump to something else from that rooftop, the timing was so strict for what you were trying to do, because so often it would just think you were in the air already because you've changed levels on the rooftops that you're kind of going along in what looks like a straight line.
Yeah.
Things like that I've heard in the sequel, they really tightened up on, and it all started to click. And so if you take it as a kind of blueprint, a proof of concept, we're trying something a bit different and seeing what works. Yeah, I can absolutely see how it would have some rough edges.
Yeah. I don't see as much, maybe this speaks about it really, I don't see as much, necessarily not love, but there's a lot of reverence for this game. But I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Is Jet Set Future?
Yeah, it's something like that.
And therefore, that does make me feel like maybe a lot of people have just got strong nostalgia for this one. And do you know what I mean? And therefore, that's what they feel about it, rather than it actually being an incredible game.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possibly the case. There was, when I was doing some poking around, just because I genuinely had a moment of like, is it me? Like, is this me? Or is it the fact, like, is it the Vita poor? Or like, is it me? And I looked, and quite a few of the sort of messaging boards basically boiled down to something along the lines of, why is everybody saying the Vita port is the Vita port is bad?
Vita port is bad.
But apart from the messages saying that, I couldn't find anything else to say that that's what people thought.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they were getting those opinions from.
Okay.
Because everybody else seemed to love it. But there were a lot of people saying the controls are clunky, and there were a lot of people who loved the game that were like, yeah, you just have to get used to that. And I'm like, well, sure, maybe in the year 2000, but like not now. And also, this was a re-release, a remake,
it's true,
and all that, or a remaster, I guess. And they could have sanded off some of those edges. They could have. I don't think it would have been that difficult. That said, I don't know what work they did or didn't do originally, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of stuck with it a little bit. I think, before now we've talked about the trappings of games and stuff like that, how they look, how they sound, all that kind of stuff. Trappings, fucking immaculate, right? Like, this is a game that you could look at, listen to, all that good stuff, and just, love it. And I'm so close to loving it. And I was ready to love this game. And then I played it, and I was just like, you know what? Like, this is just not doing it for me, for whatever reason. So, score-wise, that's left me in a bit of a tricky spot.
Yeah, that is tough. You're about to offend quite a few people.
Yeah, well, this is why I don't like giving a number.
We don't like giving a number when it's going to offend people, but when it's okay, it's...
No, I never like giving a number,
And yet here we are. We have plenty of numbers on a spreadsheet.
She never let me get away with not giving a number. I think I'm kind of coming down on it as a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
And like this is literally because to look at it, to listen to it, to watch somebody who knows what they're doing play it, absolutely. To play it myself, nah, I'm good, thank you. So I think I'm going to go for a 5.
Yeah.
But that is with a very heavy heart.
So what you're saying to me is, don't put this on the subreddit for Jet Set.
Absolutely do not. go near the subreddit. Absolutely do not.
I won't. I promise.
Yeah, I just like I genuinely think that if you were there at the time and you got the nostalgia for it, yeah, like I see it, I get it, I really, really do. And I will probably go back to it on occasion. You know, I am not writing the game off by any stretch of the imagination. But is it going to be high on my priority list to weigh back in on? I can't sit here and say that it would be.
To be fair, you also don't ever see it on. You don't really see it on the best games ever.
No,
you see people say this game is great, like if you dig into it.
Yeah,
but you don't ever see it on like a critical darling list all the time and stuff.
Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely a pioneer, right? Absolutely a pioneer, and somebody had to do these things first.
Yeah,
right, or early, or what have you. And like I say, 25 years old, and it looks like it could be an indie game from last week. That is absolutely where it is getting those 5 really points for me, and I can't understate that. But it does play like a 25-year-old game, and you know, if we were going to re-release it, or you know, I guess they're working on a new one and stuff like that.
I was going to say,
that is, I think, where you could get it to sing.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to ask you about that. I'd say, are you interested in the idea then that they are going to bring out they spoke about the Sega sort of situation when they said, what was it, 2 years ago now, even when it was like that, and it was like, oh, we're gonna redo all our old classics, you know, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, and I've not heard. I literally tried to look it up the other day, and there'd been no movement on it or anything. Really,
I don't think so.
So it's still, I guess, in the works. Maybe, hopefully, like I'd still rather have those games in the world. Maybe with a brush up, as we'll talk about with Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 in a second. They're not, but at the same time, I wonder if you won't be as eager to go to it after you've had this experience with the original.
Probably not, but like I tell you what, whenever, like if I ever see it in a video or anything like that, I'll you know, definitely have that little nice. Yeah, like I'm glad to see it. And yeah, like it is. I mean, I can't sit here and say, oh, it's unique or anything like that. It's not. Or at least it's not anymore. Yeah. And I guess that's my point. Yeah. Like, time was that it, basically would have been, I guess. So yeah, you've got to applaud it for that. Yeah. But yeah, to play it, I found it really difficult to wrap my head around what it wanted from me as much as anything else. Yeah. It's funny because it reminds me a lot of Thrasher Presents Skate and Destroy, in so much that you say about. So that is very much. If you look at that, so that was Rockstar developed and ZX's. And if you look at the reviews of that, and speak to my friend Nath, who's been on the podcast before and stuff, like, and he completed that game when he was a bit younger, and obviously it's a very difficult, hard game. And I remember him being really proud of that. And it's really well reviewed for being very much of a skater sim situation. But whenever I play it now, I find it difficult to get into. And then people would say, I think if I went and asked anybody, they'd be like, oh, you just need to give it time, and also you just, get good kind of thing. But it feels so much less fluid than I would expect a game on wheels to feel. Well, I mean, yeah, like I was playing Jet Set Radio thinking, like, this is a work of art, right? And I don't mean that in the way of like a video game work of art. Like, this should be. I would look at stills from this on a wall in a museum quite happily, right? Like, it's that level of like art direction and aesthetic intent, I guess. But yeah, to sit down and play it, something like a Tony Hawk 3, poetry in motion, whereas this was it was just not working for me. Yeah. Okay. That's a good segue, though. Let's talk about poetry. I thought it might be. Let's talk about poetry. You said when we talked about Tony Hawk's Underground 2, when was that now? Anyway, like episode 10 or some shit. And I remember you saying at the time that Tony Hawk's was your favourite skating game. 3, sorry, is your favourite one that you've played. Yep. I guess that still stands. Probably is true. You've not played much or anything since. That would beat it. So yeah, it highly regarded by yourself, definitely highly regarded by me, and on Metacritic.com, it is the best PlayStation 2 game
rated.
Oh, really?
Fact. That is
Wow.
it. It is
like everything.
96 out of 100. The best
Wow.
PlayStation 2 game ever made, according to critics and users.
Whoever else.
Yeah. So to say that as and we've spoke before about Metacritic and how you can't necessarily trust it in things, but there is still something in the formula to say that works so much that you go, right, okay, that is the game, and when you get into that sort of top 100, probably you can mix and match them all here and there and everywhere, but to have that there and have so many people love it so much, you can understand why they eventually went, right, well, everyone loves Tony Hawk's 2, for example, the PlayStation 1, which I think that's maybe second or third, maybe on there after like Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy 7 on, and then you get that game, to then go, right, okay, it makes sense that we had such a successful relaunch of those two games, 1 and 2, in 2020, which was like the perfect time for that to happen. Like, if like COVID's hanging around your neck, what do you want? To play Tony Hawk. That's what I want. That's all. Sweet all nostalgia. I want in the world. That was developed by Vicarious Visions, and they were like a porting company that have now been, I think, eaten up by the machine of Activision, Xbox, etc., etc. I think they kind of exist in some sort of guise somewhere, but not as a full development company anymore. We won't go into Xbox and all that kind of jazz at the moment, geez. But so this was made by Iron Galaxy, and now Iron Galaxy aren't necessarily known for developing games from scratch, but they have ported everything. Like every remaster that goes from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, everything that goes from Xbox One to Xbox like Series S and X, they have just got their paws all over these ports. Into Vita ports and things like that. So they know how to make a game. Take an old game and then, or from a different console or platform, and put it somewhere else and make it look good. Yeah. And when I looked at sort of their credentials, like The Last of Us, all their kind of stuff, they've had hands and all that and kind of things. So to see them be, I guess, they've done so much stuff over the last sort of 15 years. It was like promising to me to say, right, actually, if they're going to do Tony Hawk 3 and 4, effectively you're reporting it. But you are obviously redeveloping it and remaking it into something completely different from what it used to be. I will start out by saying that my review, inverted commas, of this isn't like a full complete review, but it's also not preview. I've played plenty of it. I completed with one character, Kareem Campbell, obviously. Tony Hawk's 3 on Friday night. Did all 9 parks and got all the goals and things. And that, effectively, if you call it, completed, but like obviously not everything. Yeah. And I played about maybe halfway through Tony Hawk's 4 over the weekend. So like I said, it was a sunny weekend. You can't just divert all my time to, I took up some sleep time on Friday to complete Tony Hawk's 3. And then I was like, I couldn't keep on using more time for the whole of Tony Hawk's 4. And that's probably, that speaks to this remaster a little bit. And also, the remake even. We'll come back to that in a second. It speaks to it a little bit. I think probably what they've done to it as well in terms of the part they've concentrated on the most, 3, and the part they've experimented on, which is 4. I'll also say as well that a lot of my views, when I read up a couple of reviews myself, a lot of them are probably shared with Eurogamer. Right. So if you couldn't be arsed listening to me, for example, you had to read more. Like a lot of what they said was exactly what I felt about it. So I kind of gave myself, like last night, after I'd played both of them a little bit and obviously 3 quite a bit, I thought, I'll have a look at what the reviews say now. I tried to go in with a bit of a clear conscience, look at the reviews a couple of days later, and certainly a lot of them were probably in line with how I was feeling about it, which is, good that that's the case, almost in a way. But also Eurogamer really hit the nail on the head with a few points where I was like, actually, that really kind of, that speaks to everything I was feeling about it at the time. Yeah. Because I think there's probably 2 camps with this, and it's all about what they've done with the remake, really. What's been gained and what's been lost. Yeah. So just to kind of go through it dead quickly in terms of the setup then. So I'm not going to explain how Tony Hawk's Pro Skater works. If you do not know how to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, stop listening to me right now. I don't want to be your friend. But basically Tony Hawk's 3 was the same setup as Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 in terms of 2-minute runs to complete goals. But at the time, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 and this is where I probably fall in love with Eurogamer as well. I'd never really played much of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, but I understood that it was, and then I kind of skipped 4 for some reason. I don't really know why, and kind of went straight into Undergrounds and stuff and American Wasteland, and then it was a bit weird. And I don't know if it was maybe like a console. It wasn't even that. It was 2002, so I don't really know. Maybe I just had...
Maybe just out.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it was like, Tony Hawk's 3 was so good. Did I need another?
Well,
but you could get off your board a little bit, and the NPCs gave you goals, and the levels were a bit bigger, and there wasn't the time limit set to the whole of the level. Whereas what they've done now is they've taken that away, and you no longer are given the goals by the NPCs. You have a 2-minute run on Tony Hawk's 4, which has upset quite a few people because they're like, well, why have you done that? Because that is a full, and this is where I was trying to get to the point with the remake situation. They have completely given you everything that you need for Tony Hawk's 3. Tony Hawk's 3 is, it is just touched up to be a great looking masterpiece of what was already a masterpiece. Tony Hawk's 4, they seem to have chopped and changed some, so they've removed a couple of levels. So Carnival level, and again, I'm speaking from a point of view that I never played these. Carnival level and Chicago level. So I don't know what they were like, but clearly they felt fit.
Felt like you needed to take them out.
Yeah, exactly, or change them.
Do we know why that was?
No, I did try and research that to find out why they'd done that, and there wasn't necessarily much explanation around that. I got some explanation around some of the things they changed, which I'll come on to.
Yeah.
But certainly not for why they changed those levels specifically. And then they have, I guess, to alleviate that, they've put 3 new levels back in. So they were like, right, okay, we're going to give you a competition level, which is called Movie Studio, which I've played. Water Park, which is I just got up to and got through most of the goals on Water Park. And they're great levels. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in the Movie Studio is a little bit difficult as a competition level because I am definitely not a street skater. I am vert, and there's no pure vert bowl area on there. So, but that was good because that pushed me to. It's clearly like, well, actually, in this Movie Studio there is a rig that goes around on rails. Like, the rails go all the way around the movie studio. You should probably grind those rails. Like, and I'm like, right, fine, I will. And good, I'm going to be honest. In this remake of both these games, it's the first time that I've really committed time to grinding to absolutely.
Sorry, that amused me.
That came out like that did, and to boost scores significantly, and I've probably taken 25 years since Tony Hawk's won, 26 years to realise that I could get so many points from from finding a fountain and grinding the shit out of that fountain. Again, came out weird. So and back to those levels, I haven't hit like the pinball level, which is a newer level as well. So I couldn't tell you what that was like, but certainly Water Park is. It's like a perfect Tony Hawk's level. Like you kind of go, well, I feel like I've probably played these a little bit in certain ways, but to play in a derelict water park where there's so many slides and things to go down, and so many of those little Tony Hawk's sort of like moments where like you are knocking down like beavers signs that sort of say, "Oh, the damn park's closed" and stuff, and little things where you just that this is like the sanitized version of Tony Hawk's, like, right? Almost that. I think 1, 2, and 3, and even probably 4 to an extent by the sound of things. Like, as in, you're just doing those goals, and you start to see the things where you're playing. That you're messing with the cop that's called Dick, for example, and little things like that where you're sketching on the professor's car and stuff. And then it goes right. Okay, now we're going to take it to the underground degree where it's you start getting a bit more sort of fart jokes and stuff, and people messing around the streets and graffiti and things. You start getting a bit more law breaking. This is still on that other side of 2-minute runs and the skating, but also playful sort of fun in the background, which I probably like probably the most. And I'll come on to Canada as the level that I like the most out of all Tony Hawk's levels, I think, and why that is in a minute. But yeah, just I noticed. So that was about the levels and what they changed. The thing that I think is the cardinal sin for a lot of people is the soundtrack. Yeah. So I believe I've read this a couple of times. It's around. I've read it at 59. I've read it at 69. around 60-ish tracks from the original 2 games put together. Only 10 make the cut back here. So, if you told me when Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 came out, so I think they had about a 95% retention rate of songs to the remake in 2020. Whereas this has got, obviously, a lot less, whatever that is, isn't. And they, if you said to me, I'm not going to retain the Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 soundtrack, I would have been livid. I would have been so upset. Whereas because these soundtracks on these, and this is why I want to speak to you about this, weren't as seminal for me, but I realised that it probably worked for, say, yourself, because this is your favourite.
Three definitely was. Yeah.
To hear that then, and I would tell you, the reason that they've given is obviously licensing, but also that they wanted to make sure they were still progressing with the game. They didn't want it to just be the exact same thing as it previously was. They wanted to do something. And Tony Hawk he has handpicked the soundtracks in terms of people. He's like, we use songs from the same sort of bands or band adjacencies and just basically mixed it up a little bit and just picked some other things.
Yeah.
In the background, for me, when I'm playing that, I don't notice it that much because I didn't necessarily... I played the shit out of Tony Hawk's 3, but the songs didn't sink into me like they did with Tony Hawk's 2. But I still found the songs that they've picked and the bands that they've picked completely fine. It still gave me the rhythm and that drum beat that I need behind a Tony Hawk's game. So it didn't bother me as much. But I can see why, if they are your soundtracks, why you'd be so mad about it. Yeah,
and I'm just checking the soundtrack list now.
That's fine.
On my phone.
Okay. Well, whilst you're doing that, should I sort of say, just in terms of and then we can come back to that, the Tony Hawk's 4 part of it then, and that's where, like I say, they've changed the goals and how they're set, the fact that you can't sort of get off your board, the fact that they have changed levels. I can see also why I don't hear this as often, but I can see if Tony Hawk's 4 is your favourite Tony Hawk's.
Yeah.
Which I don't see very often, but if it is, I can see why you'd be really mad about what they've done with this as well, because it isn't... Whereas Tony Hawk's 3 seems to be the one that is revered, and therefore they've been like, let's not touch that, holy shit, are you crazy? Let's play a bit with the Tony Hawk's thing, Tony Hawk's 4 part of it, because it doesn't sit well with what we currently do. It's the outlier of the first 4 in terms of the goals and getting off the board and stuff. But also, I think it's just they don't see it as well loved as the third one, or maybe the second or first one. So they thought, let's play and experiment with this now and see if people take to it or not. And for me, I was fine with it, but I like the 2-minute mad scramble runs of Tony Hawk's. So again, I'm sitting on that side of the fence, but I can totally see the other side of the fence where it's on fire.
So, soundtrack-wise, and the reason I was double-checking was because when it comes to me and Tony Hawk's soundtracks, 3 and Underground are the 2. They're the big 2. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to double-check before I made some bold, sweeping claims that what I thought was on the Underground soundtrack was. And turns out that yes, that's fine. So yeah, for Tony Hawk 3, I guess, and I'm just having a look at the original list here now. Like Ramones being up there is that is obviously a massive one. And I think what strikes me as interesting with this is that there are a good few songs on here. So like Fight Like a Brave, Red Hot Chili Peppers is one. Wish by Alien Ant Farm would be another one. 96 Quite Bitter Beings.
That's on there.
I'm reasonably sure though that of like those songs in particular, I think you could sit me down and go, right, clap when you get to the 2-minute mark. And I'm reasonably confident I could get pretty close to 2 minutes in each of those songs. Because they have Pavlovian
teachings.
Like I'm reasonably
Drool.
Certainly 96 Quite Bitter Beings and Fight Like a Brave. I'm relatively confident I could get it down to like maybe not quite to the second, but close, very close. And then the other one that it's just the endorphins and all the memories is Ace of Spades and that intro.
Yeah.
So if they got rid of that,
no, that's still there.
Thank God.
That's the song they're leading the trail with. And
you couldn't open with anything else. If you had that in the day and that was the intro, you just could not open with anything else. I guess my kind of challenge on all that kind of front though would be like, if you're going to the, and I do take their point of wanting to bring new music to people and all that kind of stuff because they're the vehicle for it. I get that, and I really appreciate they've given it that level of thought. But at the same time, between that and the changes to the levels and the changes to the structure, why not just make a new Tony Hawk Pro Skater game and put a load of levels from 3 and 4 in it?
Yes, yeah. Which I kind of feel like it's in the pipeline. I think that they're probably going to get
pipeline.
Yeah, I think that they're going to get to a point where I think the whole idea was almost like, we're going to try a few different things, like see how people. So we've done 1, we've done 2, we've done 3, effectively exactly how they were. We're going to see how it is if we start to peel the plaster off and say, here's Tony Hawk's, but a bit different from what you used to know. And because I think it got to that point where they had the franchise, they did that, and it worked. It worked really well once or twice in terms of how they did it with Tony Hawk's Underground. But then you look at like Ride and like Shred, and was that on the Wii? I think it was, and then 5 was absolutely derided and stuff. And I think when I say they, I feel like Activision and Tony Hawk are really like, we don't want to make another bad Tony Hawk game. Like, as in, clearly he likes doing it. He must love the culture and the interaction that you get. You can see it from all the publicity that's come out about this game in the last sort of like 6 months since it's been announced. The 6 months prior to that, when people were speculating that something might happen, like the sheer joy and the feeling, this wave of wanting this to happen, like it must be irrepressible for him to sort of see that and kind of go, like, this is amazing that I have gone from the 900 that I did in 1999 to where I am now. And people, this is me gushing about this. I can feel it coming. I can feel my emotions coming out.
It's happening.
It just, it means so much to so many people. It means so much to me. And as soon as this sort of got announced, I was like, there's no way, even if it didn't come out on Xbox Game Pass, I'm not a day one adopter anymore. But it would have been day one. It would have been, and they were charging £40, I think, is it for it? And like, yeah, would I have been day one £70? Ugh. But again, that's just them getting that right, though. They know that would have got me back in at 40 quid. Like, it's just been sensible. Whereas, let's see Metal Gear Solid, Delta, £70. And I'm like, oh, I'm so on the cusp about that, because I'm like, if that had been £40, yeah, no way I wouldn't have picked it up. And now I'm still a month away, kind of go, I don't know. So they just, I have no reason not to trust Mr. Tony Hawk. Like, as in everything, he could be this massive sort of sheen of celebrity that actually underneath it all, like, he knows how to make money and he knows how to do this and he knows how to do that. But he's never shown me anything other than just saying the right things and doing the right things. And so I still have to feel like I kind of trust him in his decisions around what have been changed in the game. And he's come out and even said, I've been involved in these decisions. Like, it's not like they've just done it. That is like they've asked me and I've said, yes, I've signed off on it. So I can't argue with that. And that isn't until something horrendous happens and he's like, haha, fuck you all. Like, I'm taking all my money to Hawaii or whatever. So yeah, but on the flip side, I totally get that if these are your soundtracks, then it's a kick in the teeth to pick this back up and go, oh, not everything I want to be here is here.
Yeah.
I will say on the flip side,
flip side.
Thank you. They were completely upfront about it. They released all the playlists on Spotify months and months in advance. Like, if you love this game as much as you are claiming to love this game, I would have expected that you would have followed something via, the news, gaming news, social media or something, and have seen. This is me sounding like an absolute dick. I'm not trying to, but I would have expected you to have known that the soundtrack had changed at least a month in advance. to see people kicking back about it immediately as soon as it's all, as soon as the game's out, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like,
I think that's a fair point.
How much of a Tony Hawk fan are you if you've not been following every fucking like news dispatch to say, "Here's the songs." Like,
because I mean, like, especially given the pedigree for that kind of thing, like, surely that is one of the things that you would check, keep an eye on, and one of the things that they would push.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the same, and I keep flipper flopping, kick flipping, twisting, because, but then I totally get it. I just totally get it as well. Like, you just change your thing. So yeah, there is absolutely a pool of thought where you can sort of school of thought, where you can say that these remakes have done me dirty. It depends on the kind of person you are. I just try to be optimistic about this kind of stuff and just sort of say that, isn't it just nice that we've got Tony Hawk's back in our lives again? Do you know what I mean? Like, and to see so many people either on social media or through different boards and things like that, to see so many people talking about it again and sort of saying, "Isn't it great? Tony Hawk's is back," and it's just sort of, I want that. I want that in my life.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So in general, that's obviously the feel of it. I don't even go into the gameplay, but I don't need to labour a point on that too much. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater has always had, or felt like it's always had, certainly in most circumstances, really tight, perfect gameplay, and this is no different. And what would you pick up the remake for rather than just play the PlayStation 2 version, for example, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3? I think that I don't think there's necessarily that much driving like that, really, apart from the fact that it's more, accessible now, and it looks a bit better. That's like, but I don't think if someone said to me, "Oh, you don't want to come around to mine and play Tony Hawk's 3 on the PlayStation 2 with 2 controllers wired to the PlayStation 2, or do you want to come play Tony Hawk's 3 the remake and your controllers aren't wired and it just looks a bit better, but the soundtrack might be a bit more akin to what you wanted." I don't think there's been that much added to it. It's almost just like there's no loss there for me necessarily. And how much gain is there? I don't think there necessarily has to be that much gain. You know what I mean? Almost like, what I'm trying to say is that this is one of these circumstances where someone says, "What's the point of having a remake?" And you go, I don't necessarily say there was that much of a point, but I'm not on the side of, "Oh, well, they shouldn't have remade it. It was perfect as it was." I am playing it, and it's a little bit more accessible to me. I don't know what kind of point I'm trying to make there, really. Just that I feel great about it being around in more valleys than
one. I do see where you're coming from. I think for me, because I picked up the 1 and 2 a little while back, and I think for me, like, part of the driver for that was the old levels, but with things like reverts and some of the more up-to-date moves they put in. But I think for me, because I do have 3 kicking around still, and I think that's the point that I come down to, is that, like, gameplay-wise, I'm not really sure that they added much, if anything.
Yeah.
So I think for me, picking up 3 and 4 is a bit of a harder sell, personally.
I mean, it sounds silly and stuff, but you're probably playing it on a better controller nowadays. I don't want to get into this conversation now or anything, but I think that the current Xbox controller that they have out is ergonomically the best console controller I've ever held. And I know a lot of people will say some things about the DualSense, and I noticed it. It was super noticeable when I was playing on my Logitech, trying to do the reverts and things with a handheld, not PC, but a handheld streaming device. And I'm guessing probably would feel quite the same on the Steam Deck and things, that trying to use that, I couldn't get through all the goals I wanted to get through in the way that I could with the Xbox controller. And I wonder if I maybe had better reflexes when I was younger, but maybe the PS2 controller wasn't as responsive as I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because whilst I didn't, it wasn't as much of a challenge as I thought it was going to be to get through all those goals. Like, it's on Friday night when I sat down for 4 hours and went from the start of Tony Hawk's 3 to the end of Tony Hawk's 3, one character, and did all the goals and all the parks. That would have taken me probably 4 weeks when I was younger. That is in, to sit and kind of learn all the things I need to do. Whereas I think I've just got the muscle memory for it, and B, also that I think that with modern trimmings, being able to see a bit better and the fidelity being a bit better, all those things are a lot easier. You know when to bail from a half pipe when you can see the half pipe more. So I think they all add a bit to it. But how much more? That isn't. I'm not saying it would do really. And the last kind of thing I want to say just about the changes as well was Tony Hawk's 4. I didn't know what Tony Hawk's 4 necessarily felt like, but I can see that the levels on Tony Hawk's 4 feel way more sprawling and bigger, like you were meant to explore them a bit more and spend more time doing that. And I don't think that they've changed significantly enough to bring them to be tighter to make the 2-minute runs feel like they should do.
Right.
And that's something that I thought was a bit of a detriment, to be honest. I thought that maybe they're not huge things. They're not like open cities or anything, but they're definitely bigger than 1, 2, and 3. And you don't get as much of a rhythm going. Like skates more spread out, for example. That is in, whereas, and you noticed it because in Water Park, Tony Hawk's 4, the skate line to get all the letters for skate is way tighter, and you run into that and go, God, that felt good. And whereas that you noticed it probably for the previous 4 or 5 levels on Tony Hawk's 4 before you get there, that it doesn't feel as like fluid and free flowing as you'd want it to do. So yeah, that's kind of just a few points about it really. I know that was all over the place and stuff, but it's difficult when you've just played it and also you've got so many feelings in the first place, and yeah, it's hard to kind of coalesce all that together to be something that makes sense. And that's why I'd recommend.
Here we are.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of come back to that point where I was like, Eurogamer have said all these points probably the same sort of subjective way as me, and probably, there's a man out there who gets paid to speak better words than I do.
His words good.
Yes, exactly. I am going to give it a score. I was kind of and ahhing on the way over because I was like, it's a bit of a preview, but also a bit of a review. And do people care about what we say about a contemporary game? Possibly not, but like I hold you to scores, so I should hold myself accountable also. So I went for an 8 out of 10 with this, even though it has one of the best games ever made contained within it, to probably as good as it looks. It's still tied to these sort of changes within Tony Hawk's 4 and stuff that I'm not necessarily super certain it's done its best work with that.
Got it.
I think that the most important key part of this was, though, that was that block of playing for 4 hours. I had 4 beers, sat and played Tony Hawk's 3 all the way through. It was 27 degrees outside. I had the windows open, the fan on and stuff. And I was so content with my own time, space, being doing that. And you don't always get that with video gaming. Sometimes it's tough to Jet Set Radio, sometimes it's frustrating and stuff. This just felt like a moment where I was like, that Friday, I knew around the world there was however many 100,000 people doing the exact same thing as me. And it was almost, you just think about it from a cultural point of view, that the feeling that brings is great for me personally. And people might think that's bullshit out there, but felt some sort of zen moment with it anyway. So, and that's worth something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an extreme sports blast through by us once more, but we'll probably keep on returning to because it's such a sort of fruitful gaming experience, and yeah, seem to love it. So, and a good mix there, a 1 out of 10, a 5 out of 10,
on the whole
and an 8 out of 10. Right, guys, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Guten Abend. Tschüss.